you everybody for coming out. I'd like to call this meeting to order. For those that don't know, my name is James Lynch. I'm the current president of the Manatee County Bar Association. And we always start out with the Pledge of Allegiance. Today we have the privilege of Sean Ram from the Manatee County Sheriff's Office, who's going to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I feel like I do this spiel every month, but we do have an amazing group of annual sponsors. The annual sponsors are great. They keep the cost to attend low. They keep the great food that we have. It enables us to basically do everything we do. I'm not going to run through all of them right now, but I did want to make a special mention of our newest annual sponsor, Bank of Tampa. And then I always say, if you guys are ever in need of a bank, a court reporter, a mediator, a law firm, a community foundation, financial advice, a school for your child, reach out to Grace Ann because she has all these connections. And we love to be able to set up our annual sponsors with people from the Bar Association. Another announcement, we have Julie Benjamin at the back table. She is with Dex Imaging. Julie, can you wave your hand? There she is. We are going to be raffling off another box seats to the Lightning. So this is very exciting, especially now that the U.S. is gold medal champions ×2. So I'm sure that the Lightning will be rocking. If you didn't get a chance to put your business card in the fishbowl, if you just want to raise your hand, Grace Ann will kind of walk around and collect. I just want to make sure that everyone that has a chance to get in gets in. Question for you: do we have any guests in attendance today? If you can just raise your hand. Yes.
I didn't expect to be called off first.
Caught you while you were eating. Yes.
Maggie Mooney. I'm here with Commissioner Amanda Ballard.
Excellent. Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Ballard. Any other guests? Yes. Great. Thank you for coming. And anyone else? Great. Also pleased to announce we have METV here today. You can see set up over there. They're also going to be running the slideshow for Judge Smith. So again, thank you METV for all you do, not only for the Bar Association, but for the community. And we also have, we're lucky to have the 2nd District Court of Appeal judges here today at this table up here. They were in town to hear oral argument this morning, and I'd like to welcome Chief Judge Matthew C. Lucas up to the podium for a few comments.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. My name is Matt Lucas, and I'm the Chief Judge of the 2nd DCA. We always look forward to these traveling oral argument dockets because it gives us a chance not only to come to the different counties that we serve, but to spend some time with our local bar associations. So thank you so much for the very gracious welcome that we've gotten here in Manatee County today. We really appreciate it. With the time that I have, let me fill you all in on what's happening in our court. There's a lot happening in the 2nd DCA. First of all, we have a new colleague. Judge John Gard was appointed. He's already attended the Judicial College, which is like boot camp for new judges. He has also attended our 2nd DCA Judges Conference, and now he's getting cases assigned to him. So he's hitting the ground running. Governor DeSantis appointed Judge Gard to our court back in January, and we're thrilled to have him as a colleague. Judge Gard will be the last appointment to the 2nd DCA for some time. By statute, our court is now due to lose 2 judges by attrition. That means the next 2 judges who retire from our court will not be replaced by appointment. So we will eventually go from a court of 15 down to a court of 13. Despite our rising case numbers, more on that in just a second, I'm confident we will continue to do our work fully and carefully review cases and get decisions out the door in a timely fashion. How is our caseload looking? It's going up. If our caseload was the stock market, I'd say we're all getting richer. since our caseload is not the stock market, let me instead say we're all getting busier. Let me share with you some numbers from the 2nd DCA's yearly filings. In 2023, we had 2,218 appeals filed, 536 petitions, for a total of 2,817 filings. 2024, we had 2,352 appeals, 589 petitions for a total of 2,942 filings. And this past calendar year, we had 2,756 appeals, 769 petitions for a total of 3,515 filings. That comes out to a 24.8% increase in total filings between calendar year 2023 and 2025. Now, I know compared to our trial court colleagues, that sounds like a drop in a bucket. I used to be a county judge, and I would have dreamed of having a 3,000 caseload docket. It's a little different at the DCA level, though, because it takes 3 of us to decide every single case. What trial court colleagues, what you can do with one judge, it takes 3 of us to handle. So that requires more resources for each case. But it has definitely been going up. We have rising caseload. We're going to be losing a couple judges, and all that's going to be okay because our court has weathered spikes in case filings in the past. We'll manage along just fine. Let me tell you about our really big news, though. We have officially opened the Bernie McCabe Courthouse. Last Saturday, we had a ceremonial ribbon-cutting ceremony to commemorate the opening. It's a state-of-the-art secure courthouse building that's situated on Mirror Lake in downtown St. Petersburg. We have finally arrived on our journey to a courthouse home. As it turns out, a new home that is a little closer to you all than our last home in Tampa, and a lot closer to you all than our original headquarters in Lakeland. So we hope to see you all there for oral arguments. It's a beautiful facility. It's secure, which in this day and age is something that all of us, both judges and lawyers, need to be especially cognizant of. The courtroom is awesome, and we really hope to see all of you there, whether you have cases on appeal or not. Please come by and see it because we're really proud of it. So a lot has happened in this past year. Heck, a lot has happened in the past month. Got some new faces on our court and a whole new place for our courthouse. On behalf of the 2nd DCA, thank you all for all you do to support the court. Thank you all for the hospitality that you always extend us when we come here for oral arguments. And please do come visit us. Thank you again.
Once again, just wanted to express our thanks to the 2nd District for coming back to Manatee County here in oral argument and making the time to have lunch with us and hear some great speakers today. Also wanted to thank all the other judges in attendance here today. That drives a lot of our attendance here, and we always appreciate seeing you and speaking with you. Now, a few business things to get rid of before we get to the stars of the show. Today's presentation has been approved for CLE credit. If you have it, it will also be coming up on the screens, but if you want to have a pen, it's 2600397N. That will also be repeated at the end as well. Again, another benefit of being in the Bar Association, you can knock off those CLE credits and get to hear great speakers like today. A few upcoming announcements. March 12, there's going to be an ethics CLE, which we know how important those are. It's being a lawyer. Again, that's March 12. You can check your weekly e-blast from Grace Ann for details about that. On March 10, 3 of our judges, Judge Inman, Judge Steele, and Judge Gould, will be presenting at the Kiwanis Lunch in honor of International Day of Women Judges. The Kiwanis has extended this invitation over to the Manatee County Bar Association. Tickets are only $25. If you have any questions, please see Andrea Johnson right here in the middle. She would be glad to speak with you about that. On Friday, May 8th, Bench Bar Conference is going to be down at the St. Regis Resort down in Longboat Key, so not too shabby. Registration is open and the tickets are selling. Like, I know I'm not that guy that's like, get your tickets now, but they are selling quick, and they may hit a point where they don't accept anymore. So if you want to get some CLE, you want to have some great social networking with folks, I would strongly recommend you sign up for that. Details are in the weekly e-blast. For Judge Smith, We do have a few copies of Lawyers and Legends. If you don't have a copy in your firm, I recommend you get at least one. We have a few copies of the second edition here today if you'd like to produce it or purchase that. And then, very exciting, and you'll hear later, the most recent edition is set to come out in the April-May timeframe. So, another one in the trilogy that's going to be coming out, and we appreciate Judge Smith for keeping us all informed about the history here in Manatee County. Two more things. The beach party is on Friday, May 1st. So just make sure you put that on your calendar. Always a good time. It's been noted that the best DJ in all of Manatee County runs things at that. Thank you. And we'd like to extend our thanks to the Grimes Galvano firm and Berlin, Patton, Ebling for hosting the YLD Java with the Judges this morning. So with all that, we have a brief announcement from Spencer Heinz of the Young Lawyers Division, the YLD Hot Minute, which is promised to be the YLD 15 seconds. So make it brief.
Good afternoon. YLD has been doing a lot of fun things lately. We just had our affiliate outreach program. We're waiting to hear back on the grant for that. The boys and girls got to go to Margaritaville and give the presentation. We have our security deposit recovery program. It's up and running now. We have a CLE for that that's going to be posted shortly, hopefully. Table for 10, April 29th. It'll be a great opportunity to meet Judge White. He's new on the civil bench for everyone that's practicing civil here, and it'll be a great opportunity to meet him and get a little FaceTime. And keep an eye out for the artwork in the courthouse. We're gonna be changing it out and getting some new stuff. That's all I got for you.
Thank you, Spencer. And so with that, I'd invite Dan Van Etten up to introduce our distinguished speakers today.
Good afternoon, everybody. We have two judges that are going to be coming up and speaking today. That is Chief Judge Diana Moreland, as well as Judge Gilbert Smith, Jr. Let me tell you a little bit about each one of these judges. Chief Judge Diana Moreland is a graduate of the United States Merchant Marine Academy and Stetson University of Law. She has been a circuit judge in the 12th Judicial Circuit since January of 2005. Prior to her election to the bench, she was a partner and shareholder in the law firm of Reinhardt and Moreland. Since taking the bench, she has been active in judicial education. She has taught at the Judicial Colleges Phase 1 and 2, Advanced Judicial Studies, County Judges Conference, and Circuit Judges Conference. In addition, she has sought to improve the judiciary by serving on several statewide committees. As a result, in 2014, she was appointed by the Florida Supreme Court to act as the chair of the Trial Court Performance and Accountability Committee and co-chair of the Joint Due Process Work Group. Beginning in 2020, she served as the administrative judge for Manatee County, as well as acting chief judge in the chief's absence. In 2022, she was appointed by the Supreme Court to serve as chair of the Judicial Needs Assessment Committee. On June 30th of 2023, Florida Supreme Court Chief Justice Muniz appointed her to serve on the Judicial Circuit Assessment Committee, which culminated in the submission of its final report and recommendation on December 1st, 2023. In February of 2023, she was honored by being unanimously elected by her peers to serve them as Chief Judge of the 12th Judicial Circuit commencing on July 1st, 2023. The Honorable Gilbert Smith, Jr. served as president of the Manatee County Bar Association from 2003 to 2004. I hear he's not as good of a DJ as James Lynch. He grew up in Bradenton and graduated from Manatee High School, Manatee Junior College, University of South Florida, and University of Pacific Law School. He practiced law for 20 years, being elected as circuit judge of the 12th Judicial Circuit in 2008. Judge Smith believes that the 12th Judicial Circuit has a rich history which needs to be preserved for future generations. He is a published author, speaker, and community leader. And I have it hot off the press, an exciting update to make. Today's presentation is a sneak peek into Judge Smith's newest book, Legends of the Bench, coming out in May, which we hope to have ready for Law Day. Please stay tuned for that. With that, please welcome Judge Moreland, Judge Smith up.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have one announcement to take care of some business. The local professional panel needs members. It is a 3-year obligation, and it takes 2 hours of training, and it has immeasurable impact on the quality of the attorneys in this area. If you are at all interested in packing that resume, making yourself accountable and making other people accountable, please see Mary Hawk, because she is the chair and has been the chair for quite a while now. I'd like to begin this presentation. I gave this sort of similar presentation about 5 months ago, where I was considered myself the warm-up act for Judge Smith. In retribution, he's wearing a costume today. It's amazing what you can do with an AO. The other thing that I would like to let everybody know is I will be leaving after I get done with the introduction, because there's one group that's more important than the judges and the attorneys in here, and that's the ladies and gentlemen that were arrested in the last 24 hours. And I am responsible for getting to them. So today I'm going to take a different approach. I realized I don't sing, I don't dance, I don't juggle, so I was a flop as a warm-up band, a warm-up act. So today I'm going to be somewhat more dignified. We're here to talk about a book that you haven't seen, but I have. So I thought it appropriate to put on a hat of maybe a book reviewer. And to do that, I did some research. And I saw some reviews that informed what I was going to tell you. Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte got the following evaluation: vile people are mean to one another, the end. Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. There's one thing I really liked about this book, The Great Gatsby, it's short. Insomnia, Changing Genres by Stephen King. The Cure. And perhaps my favorite, Moby Dick by Herman Melville. Moby Dick was a whale. Moby Dick was a white whale. Moby Dick was a large white whale. Ishmael was a man. Ishmael was a white man. Ishmael was a small white male. And that is the report I turned in for AP English back in high school. I hate this book. As much as I love a good run-on sentence like the next guy, how anything with a sentence that runs for numerous pages is considered classic is beyond me. When I had kids, I promised that their punishment was to read this book for really bad behavior. I'm not talking about curfew violations. I'm talking about crime. Because then I would have them in the cell or in their bedroom reading that book, and yes, at that point, it would be appropriate. So with that basis, I thought, okay, now I know what a bad book review looks like. And knowing that this is just the book that I'm going to be reviewing today, written by our own Gilbert Smith, only goes up to from 1855 to 1979. One of the interesting things about this book is that you're going to see when you finally have an opportunity is that as you go through the book, the timeline, you're going to say, oh, I finally know somebody. And that happened to me at about page 76. And I think the sooner on you have that realization, the older you are. But what I will tell you is that as the AI told me how I do a review, by the way. I wanted you all to know I'm hip enough to get advice from AI. And it said a good review is balanced. So I'm going to tell you this book has history, dates, events, characters, and more characters. It's a review about the book, not the author. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. Gilbert, you are wonderful, amazing, etc. I want to have a good part in this next volume. A good review is about the author's craft and not the packaging. Again, I disagree. He has an amazing packaging. You're all going to love the cover, and it's very reminiscent of his other books. He has I'm not going to go into an extensive summary of his book, but let's say it has mystery, it has intrigue, it has on-page retirements of judges, deaths of judges, replacement of judges, impeachment of judges, pretty much everything a judge can be. And my favorite part is that it's concise, it's well-researched, it can be used in any of your offices as a starting point if there's something in our 12th Judicial Circuit that you have questions about the judiciary. So with that in mind, he has numerous judges that he describes. Tall, athletic, smart, brilliant. I want mine if I have any input. She was a great front man and good at reviewing. And with that, everybody, I'm giving you Gilbert Smith.
Well, hello, everybody, and thank you again for letting me speak to the Bar Association. You know, I care so much about this Bar Association that it's always important for me to be here to support it. I always thought that the Bar Association backbone was the judges, and I appreciate what is going on in the association now with support of that. And I want to thank Judge Moreland for this, for her introduction. She did reference being described in the next book, which the next book, part 2 of Lawyers, Legends of the Bench, is about 90% finished. So I have plenty of room to revise it, to put in whatever she wanted, as well as my colleagues here who are listening to me, that I'd be able to do that. So I want to thank all of you for being here again. I want to thank the 2nd DCA judges for being here. It's always special when you're in town to be here, and it's always special to have you at the Bar Association to give us an update. Now I've got a lot of slides that I'm going to be going through, and I may go a little fast, but I do have some things to do. And some of these, I had slides that I showed in Lawyers and Legends of Manatee County, which I did last year. And I'm going to try real hard not to talk about those for a lot. And I've tried to eliminate anything that would be a duplicate. So forgive me if there are some things in there that you've heard before. And then at the end, I'm going to save some time at the end to talk about a few things, and that is the book that is going to be out in April. And I also want to talk about this is the last time I will be talking to you as a sitting judge, since my retirement is July 31st, 2026. And that's because the Constitution told me that's going to happen. So let me tell you a few facts. Manatee County has been a part of at least 8 different judicial circuits in its history. Sarasota County has been in 3 different circuits. DeSoto County has been in 6 different judicial circuits, and I'm going to talk about some of that. Manatee County has had 6 different courthouses in its history, not including hotels, churches, stores, and other buildings used in the 1800s. And it also doesn't include the Manatee County Judicial Center. Sarasota has had 1 courthouse in its history, but that figure does not include the Hoover Arcade, the Sarasota County Justice System, the Lynn Silvertooth Judicial Center, or the South County Courthouse. DeSoto County has had 3 courthouses in its history, and that doesn't include any annexes or any other buildings used temporarily. So let's talk about the history here of the judicial system. When Manatee County was created in 1855, it was in the Southern Judicial Circuit, which covered 3/4 of the state of Florida. The population was low and the settlements were spread throughout the region. Tampa and Key West were the towns in the circuit, as well as being the county seats of Hillsborough and Monroe counties. And the circuit judge at that time was Thomas King, and he traveled the circuit by boat. Then Manatee County, when it was created in 1855, was an 5,000 square mile county with villages, and Manatee was the village that was designated as the county seat. And there were very few people spread out over this 5,000 square mile county, but there were a few settlements and villages. And any settlements that were out there were built by forts, which it was untamed wilderness at the time, and really Native Americans or visited by soldiers and explorers. So let's meet some of your judges. The first judges here. The law established in Manatee County established a local judicial system, and here we have Ezekiel Glazer. He's on your far right. In the middle is Justice of the Peace James Green, and Josiah Gates is also there, the other one on the far right. I think both sides were different, so maybe I'm getting them a little confused, but that's James Green in the middle. Their only training in law was life experiences, and Ezekiel Glazer was a carpenter. James Green's claim to fame was being the sheriff of Hillsborough County, and then he was what he described himself, which is not politically correct, I'm sure anymore, an Indian fighter, that he fought the Seminole Indians. And the circuit judge was out of Tampa, and for the next 60 years would be riding the circuit, only appearing several times a year. Now, Manatee County officials included the probate judge, which was Judge Ezekiel Glazer, and he would serve in the local buildings that were in the village of Manatee until the courthouse was built, and this is the first courthouse built in Manatee County, which has been restored. And that was built in 1860, just in time right before the Civil War. And it was used by the probate judge and the justice of the peaces. But unfortunately, because of the Civil War, it never was used by a circuit judge before because of the naval blockade by the Union kept any boats out of Manatee County. So there wasn't any circuit judge business going on. There was no judicial proceedings in circuit court at that time. But the justice of the peaces would hold court when they could during the Civil War if they didn't join the Confederate Army, which many of them did. But you're going to hear about James Green did exactly the opposite. He joined the Union Army, which is going to be something that's going to really change the history of Manatee County. Judge James Geddes is the first circuit judge to hold court in the first courthouse in Manatee County, and he actually is he is the judge that went to Pine Level, which is the county seat, which I'm going to talk about in just a few minutes. He was in the Confederate Army, and he was able to, after the Civil War, resurrect himself to be acceptable to the governor at the time, so he was able to. Now, this next picture I'm showing you is how we find pictures of people in the 1800s, and that is that you have to find these composites were put together of a lot of photos that are and this photo is all the men that voted to secede from the Union in Florida, and there's circles of the 3 people in there that were judges here. The one at the bottom is Circuit Judge Weiner Bethel, who was out of Key West, and that's where he resided from, and that's where he began and where he presided for so long. You cannot tell it from the photo, but he had flaming red hair and a flaming red beard, and he actually practiced law in Bahamas before he came here. In 1868, the legislature passed the law moving the Manatee County seat from the village of Manatee to a more central location. Justice of the Peace James Green, who had been in the Union Army, wound up to be the most influential person in South Florida because since the North won, he was in the legislature at the time and was able to change the course of history and have the county seat moved. Now, I haven't talked about this before, but what's important for Pine Level to understand is that there actually were people that were there in the area, farmers and also ranchers at the time. And there was one Reverend Ezekiel Hull, who was a prominent Baptist circuit riding preacher in Florida, who actually preached throughout the Central Florida, and he actually was there. And I discovered recently how there were settlers that were around Pine Level that would worship under a brush arbor or a temporary shelter, and that's where Pine Level is going to be found. Now, for those of you that have heard about Pine Level, you will know where it is, but for those that not, it's from here, it's about 40 miles towards Arcadia, and it's across Horse Creek, which is a few miles if you go through Mayaca City, on State Road 70, that you'll find Pine Level, and it's only 2 or 3 miles from Arcadia. Now, I want to talk to you about Judge Enoch Mizell. And Judge Mizell was a county judge in Manatee County, and he served from 1869 to 70, and he is actually the uncle of the famous cowboy that I've shown you many pictures before, and that was Bone Mizell, which his name is Bonaparte Mizell. So I know I've showed you that before. In 1868, Florida legislature created the 6th Judicial Circuit, and Manatee County was included in that with Hernando, Polk, and Monroe counties. And wherever there were Florida cowboys, there were saloons. And as Pine Level developed, there were more saloons than there were other types of buildings there. And with the combination of saloons and cowboys, the justice system was needed. But speaking of saloons and alcohol, it's time to speak about Judge Magby. So Judge Bagby, there's no photo of him, but there is this cartoon that was drawing that's in a Tampa newspaper in the 1800s. And Judge Bagby was on the bench after the Civil War, and he actually was in office for quite a few years, and he did serve in Pine Level. But he was fine on the bench, but off the bench, alcohol contributed to his reputation. And he was targeted with many pranks. So this is the only drawing we ever have of him. And he was impeached twice by the legislature. He was acquitted in the first one, and he resigned before the second one. So he has that record. Next is Circuit Judge Henry Mitchell, who was actually the most famous judge we've had in Manatee County, because after he served as a circuit judge at Pine Level, and he was appointed to the Florida Supreme Court, and then he became the governor of Florida in 1892. And he was the judge that served when they tried the Sarasota assassin case in Pine Level. And that was a case that made national news, and this is a headline out of the New York Times. And so it was very interesting that he was presided over that. But the Justice of the Peace, who issued the warrants, who actually put on a gun and went with the posse to pick up the people, the accused, was Alden Adams. And he's one of the most interesting characters who became a Justice of the Peace in Manatee County. He was a successful businessman in the North and traveled as a journalist around the world. But when he came to Manatee County, he just did not build a house, he built a castle. That is a picture of his castle on the Manatee River. He had 800 acres, and he had all the domesticated animals that you could imagine, and even had some wild animals, and that's where he held court, in that castle. I finally found a picture of the hanging tree, and that's behind the courthouse, which you'll just see here, But the earlier photo is the last photo of the Pine Level Courthouse. Now, there were 3 courthouses at Pine Level. The last one was destroyed by the hurricane, but there were 3 courthouses there. The next justice of the peace was Ziba King, and Ziba King was 6'5" cattleman, and he became one of the largest cattlemen in Central Florida, and he owned many businesses. But he was in the House of Representatives when DeSoto County was created. And so when after DeSoto County was created, the Pine Level went with DeSoto County, so Manatee County lost its county seat. And so all of the judicial activities came back to Manatee, the village of Manatee, and temporarily were there until they came to Bradentown, which was called with an I, and it was town. And that is the courthouse where the judges served at that time. Now, here are the judges that served during this time. Judge Hanson, Judge Phillips, Judge Curry, and Judge Sparkman were there, and they served at that time. And each of them has an interesting story, which I talk about in detail. And all of these judges that served at that time were very colorful characters. Finally, in 1893, they built a new courthouse, and it's on Manatee Avenue and Main Street, right downtown. This is a picture from the intersection. And the judges that served there were, again, Judge Phillips, Judge Wall, Judge Webb, Judge Stewart, and Judge Whitney. And finally, in 1914, the Manatee County Courthouse was completed, and it was had a courtroom and then an office for every elected official. And the sheriff was in the basement, and then the jail was on the 3rd floor, and it actually was that way for a long, long time. Many of the lawyers here and some of the judges remember when it was just the Manatee County Courthouse and not the Manatee County Judicial Center. Governor Park Trammell appointed O.K. Reeves in 1915 as a circuit judge, and he becomes the first lawyer in Manatee County to become a circuit judge in the circuit where Manatee County was located. And so it was nice to have a resident for the first time that was a circuit judge from here. And he is the judge, the only judge that I know, that to ensure security at a trial and the courthouse by having machine guns at each end of the courthouse so that there wasn't going to have any problems with any violence. 1921 was such a big year in the circuit for Manatee County when Sarasota County was created, and the Sarasota County Courthouse was in the Hoover Arcade on Sarasota Bay. And this is a newspaper article that took me years to find, where it does confirm that it was the courthouse, because there's lots of photos of Hoover Arcade, but none of that. After O.K. Reeves retires, this took me a while to find this one, Judge Melvin Arthur McMullen from Pinellas County was appointed the circuit judge. That's not him, but that was Judge Clark, who was the first county judge of Sarasota County who was appointed, who started practicing law in the 1915 in Sarasota, the city of Sarasota. So now in 1923, Judge William Harrison was appointed, and he becomes a circuit judge over a large circuit with just one other circuit judge, and at times he was the only circuit judge, and he served for 35 years, and I think the 2nd DCA is holding court in the Judge Harrison courtroom. Interesting, Judge Paul Albritton, who was appointed in 1927 to the 27th Judicial Circuit, because they had reconfigured all the circuits again, and Sarasota County had its own circuit, as well as Manatee had its own circuit, and he served at that time. And he would serve until they reorganized again, the circuit, and then he went back to practicing law. And he's got to have a key role in just a few minutes. Judge Gordon Hayes was elected in 1924 in Arcadia, and he was only 21 years old. He was just out of law school 1 year before he became the DeSoto County judge. Now, I have Judge Murphy up here. I talked about Judge Murphy before. He was a county judge, and he wasn't a lawyer, but his claim to fame is Remember, he was the traffic officer who stopped Babe Ruth and gave him a speeding ticket, and he didn't know who Babe Ruth was. In 1935, the legislature created and changed the composition of the judicial circuits again, and Manatee County went into the 12th Circuit with 7 other counties. And in 1916, George Whitehurst was appointed as a Hardy County judge, but then he came over to the 12th Circuit and in 1935, and he served for 54 years on the bench because after he retired in 1947 as a circuit judge, President Harry Truman appointed him to the U.S. District Court for both the northern and southern districts of Florida, and he served there for quite a long time. He actually was instrumental in creating the Middle District of Florida. Now, in 1938, Governor Fred Cohn appointed Wendell Chapman as the Sarasota County judge. He made the news in 1944 when he got into a dispute with his assistant and his assistant's ex-husband. It's a good thing he wasn't a good shot, because when he did shoot at him at 5 points in the middle of shopping, he was arrested for attempted murder and went to trial, and who represented him was former Judge Paul Albritton. I'm not going to tell you how that turned out. I'll let you read about it. When Judge Harrison dies in 1959, the citizens in Manatee County mourned his loss because he was involved in so many organizations. He was really set the standard for volunteering. And from 1940s until 1979, most of the judges were part of the Greatest Generation, and many of them were in combat in World War II. Now, have you ever wondered how cases get selected for a judge? Well, for many years, they had a marble machine, and with the clerk, Angel Coloniso's help, the research is in 1962, instead of the clerk reaching in a box to get the name of the judge who was going to have the case, they turned the marble machine on. And that was used for a long time, and that sort of explains how I get a few cases now and then, because they must go to that machine when they want to give me one of these unusual cases Judge Moreland assigns to me. In 1968, the Florida Constitution was revised and approved by the voters. And it was one of the obstacles to revising the Constitution was the pork chop gang, which had a hold on the legislature for many, many years. In 1968, Governor Kirk appointed Roy Dean as a new county judge, and then in 1970, he was appointed as a circuit judge. And then in 1969, the legislature created the 20th Judicial Circuit, and many of the judges who were serving in the 12th Circuit went down to a new circuit to the south. And, I didn't mention this when the 7 judges were up there, but, I could go, each of those judges that were on those 7 judges in the Greatest Generation were all in combat, and the one at the far left was my dad's first cousin, Harold Smith, who served as a judge in the 12th Circuit and then in the 20th Circuit for years and years. In 1971, Judge Hensley swore in my dad, and that was when I became a part of the 12th Circuit, I feel. The judges at that time, there were only 7 circuit judges, and they all became like fathers to me. So that was a time that was special for me, and that's why the 12th Circuit has such feeling for me, and I have such affection for the circuit and for the history and preserving the circuit. Now, in 1971 and 72, the Constitution was revised. However, Article 5 was not, because the committee that worked on that couldn't agree on the language, and it wasn't approved by the legislature. So they worked on it in 1971-72. There was a lot of campaigning because they finally came up with language for Article 5, and the legislature approved it. And so for a year, there were campaigning going on to try to have support for this. in March 1972, 70% of the voters approved Article 5, and it became one of the most modern court systems in the United States. In 1972, a number of new judges were elected to the circuit, and many of you appeared in front of some of these judges. In September 72, Sarasota County Judge Steve Dakin was elected along with Sarasota City Judge Evelyn Gabi, Court of Record Judge Harry Parham, and former State Attorney Frank Schaub. Now, all of these are such interesting people that I don't have time to talk about each one of them, but they are just so interesting. Judge Dakin, I will tell you, there's only two people still alive that are in Legends of the Bench Part 1, and that's Judge Steve Dakin and another man who served as a municipal judge, Ralph Haben. The story about Ralph Haben and me will be in that book that Abigail has now helped me with, and that's going to be Legends of the Bench After Dark, which will be after I either die or the statute of limitations is run. Sarasota County Judge Claflin Garth and Bradenton attorney Roberta Knowles were both elected in September 1972 as Manatee County judges. Judge Knowles becomes the first woman to be elected as a Manatee County judge. And I need to go back to Judge Gabi, who was in the previous picture, and she was the first woman elected to the circuit bench in the 12th Circuit. Now, Robert Stahlschmidt and Edmund Kummer were small claims judge in Sarasota, and they were elected during that time and under the new Article 5. Now, this is interesting that on January 3rd, 1973, they did two investitures at two different courthouses the same day. Nowadays, it takes all day to get ready for one, and then we have one investiture. Back then, Judge Hensley drove to Sarasota to have one investiture, and then he drove back to Bradenton to have another one. So all the judges were sworn in at once, and some of you will know some of those people if you look close that were in there. After being elected to DeSoto County judge in 1968, Vincent Hall was then appointed a circuit judge. And he became the history of a judge continually being the president of the Arcadia Rodeo, and that tradition continues today. And you'll hear more about that in the book that I'm trying to finish, and that's part 2. Vincent Hall, of course, goes to the 2nd DCA in the 80s. So I'll talk more about that the next time I do talk about this. Now, Judge Parker was appointed in 1975 when Judge Hall was appointed to the circuit bench. And he was younger. He was like Judge Dakin. Judge Dakin and Judge Parker were younger than the other judges, but they got along fine with them. In fact, Judge Parker, I thought Judge Parker was part of my family for many years because my dad and him were like brothers, even though my dad was much older, and oftentimes they got in trouble. But that won't be in Abigail. That's going to be in the After Dark book, too. When the business of the 12th Circuit justified it, a professional court administrator was appointed. And that was Jack Byers, with a graduate of the new National Court Administrator School. And he knew how to be a court administrator because he knew how to. He always, at the Circuit Judges Conference, he hosted the happy hour for all the judges. So he had a hospitality house that was open all the time, and he knew how to make things happen. There's a lot of stories about him too, but that won't be in any books I'm writing about right now. That'll be later. I'll have to put that. Judge Marvin Silverman was elected as the 3rd Sarasota County judge once they did get a 3rd county judge, and this was in 1976. Now, the two ladies here were definitely legends, even though we're not necessarily legends of the bench. Some people called them gatekeepers of the judge. Some people, often lawyers, had other names for them. Eleanor Reichert and Jean Dunlap were just judicial assistants for my dad and Judge Hensley. And some of you knew them. Probably very few of you knew them. It was so long ago. But many years after Judge Hensley retired, he was asked about how their performance, and he said, "You win some and you lose some." That was it. You can interpret that way any way you want to. Both Eleanor and Jean will, of course, be in the After Dark version. Now, after serving as the dean of Stanford Law School, Grissom Walker moved to Sarasota with his family, and he was appointed after Judge Roy Dean retired. Now, music's always been a part of the 12th Judicial Circuit, and in the 70s, many of the judges, most of the judges, went to the feed store in Ellington and would listen to a couple of popular bands, Judge Leon Poindexter Band, and once my dad heard him, he was at every circuit judge conference and every local conference you can have. And of course, on the bottom or on the side is a Southern Pleasure Band, which is actually, everybody recognize, our own Manatee County Judge Doug Henderson. At that time, he was not a county judge. He hadn't gone to law school yet, but he was played bluegrass. And my assistant's father is also there playing with him. So, this is the cover of the book that went to my publisher that may not look like that when it comes out, but this was my proposed book, and that's my dad in the upper right-hand corner. I have a publisher. They will design the book. They'll take a look at my ideas. That's a picture of the inside of the first courthouse in Manatee County that's restored, and it's now over in the Manatee County Historical Park, which is not too far from here. So in closing, I want to thank all of you again for being here and listening to me. Researching and writing books about the history of this area is just really important to me, just to preserve the history. That's why I do it, no other reason. Writing about the legal profession and the community here is very personal to me. And of course, writing about the circuit and the judges is so personal to me because I feel like I've been a part of it for most of my life. I will be retired July 31st, 2026. I'm sorry that Judge Moreland had to leave so soon because I wanted to express my appreciation to her as just an outstanding chief judge, along with my colleagues here on the bench. This is such an outstanding bench, and it always has been. Trial judges here, they are so conscientious. They're so passionate about their work. We all are busy. We don't get to spend a lot of time together. Being a judge is a very isolated event in terms of the work you do and what you go forward. But somehow my colleagues have been able to excite the circuit because they do interact a lot, they engage a lot, they work together a lot, and it's really impressive because over time, as judges are isolated so much, that it's sort of the negative part about being a judge, even though that serving is so important. So with that, I want to thank all of you again. I appreciate you being here. The book should be out in April, and I'll probably, see you again sometime at another bar meeting. Thank you.
Judge Smith. Judge Smith, thank you for preserving and making our local history accessible. We do have a limited edition Jack Manson mural mug for you that features the mural painted by our very special past president, Jack Manson.
Okay.
Remember, if you don't have a Jack Manson mug, you don't have Jack.
Okay.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next luncheon will be on Wednesday, March 25th. Thank you all for attending. Look forward to seeing you next time.